Audiobook Introduction. The Slavic Shadow, the Peryn Knot. Read by the author, Anna Gogoleva. Listener, before you open the door to this story, you must first understand the land it comes from. Not the Russia of czars and cathedrals, not the Russia of wars and revolutions, the other Russia, the one that sleeps beneath the soil, in the roots of ancient oaks, in the cold depths of lakes that have no bottom. This is the Russia of the rusálki, and if you think you know what a rusálka is, think again. What are the rusálki? In the West, you have mermaids, beautiful creatures with fish tails, singing sailors to their doom with sweet voices. In the East, we have something far stranger, far sadder, and far more terrifying. The rusálka is not a sea maiden. She has no tail. She wears a simple white linen shift, torn at the edges. Her hair is long and loose, never braided, never adorned, because the unmarried girls of ancient Rus wore their hair down. And the rusálka is, above all else, an unmarried girl. She is a zalogny pokojnik, an unclean dead, a soul who died before her time, before her wedding, before she could taste the fullness of life. She may have drowned herself in grief. She may have been cursed by her own mother. She may have been murdered and thrown into the waters of Lake Ilmen, forgotten by the world, but never forgotten by the lake itself. These are not monsters. These are mourners. They appear not with a splash and a song, but with a whisper and a chill. During the Rusálka week, the week after Pentecost, they rise from the rivers and lakes, walking the forests, swinging from birch branches, and if they catch you alone, they will not bite you, they will not drown you, they will tickle you to death, and laugh while you die, not from cruelty, but from a love so desperate that they cannot bear to be alone. The rusálka's embrace is a death sentence, but it is also a cry for connection. And in this novel, one rusálka, Mila, will teach us that the only thing more dangerous than a curse is a love that was never spoken aloud. The land of the story. This is not a fairy tale set in an imaginary castle. The events of this novel take place in real places, places you can still visit today if you have the courage. Peryn, near the ancient city of Novgorod. A grove where the thunder god Perun once had his sanctuary. 8 pits in the shape of a flower where fires burned in his honor. A place where the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead is as thin as a spider's web. The zhalniks, ancient burial mounds, circles of gray stones on hills above the water, where the unclean dead were laid to rest, neither in the churchyard nor in the ground, between earth and sky, between heaven and hell, waiting, always waiting. And the mythical island of Buyan, a place that appears in every old Slavonic charm, every whispered incantation. On the ocean sea, on the island of Buyan, lies a white stone. A place that exists on no map, yet lives in the memory of every soul who ever whispered a prayer to the wind. The magic of the old world. In this story, magic is not wands and spells. It is memory. The shells you will encounter, the spiral whisper snails, are not jewelry, they are vaults. In ancient Rus, the dead were believed to speak through shells, through the hollow bones of birds, through the rustle of dry leaves. A shell held to the ear did not carry the sound of the sea, it carried the voice of a drowned girl, still longing to be heard. And the curses in this story are not punishments from angry gods. They are echoes, echoes of wounds that were never healed, echoes of words that were never spoken, echoes of mothers who loved too fiercely and daughters who drowned in that love. A warning for the listener. This is not a gentle bedtime story. There will be darkness. There will be water, cold, endless, hungry water. There will be grief that spans centuries. But there will also be forgiveness. There will be the sound of a cat purring in the dark. There will be a girl who learns that to break a curse, she does not need a sword. She needs the courage to remember. Why this story matters now. I wrote this novel because I believe that the old gods are not dead. They are waiting. And I believe that the curses we carry, the silence we hold in our chests, the love we failed to confess, the words we swallowed, are the same curses that have haunted the daughters of Rus for 1,000 years. We are all rusálki in our own way, drowning in our own silence, waiting for someone to pull us to the surface. So listen closely, dear listener. Listen to the whispers of the lake. Listen to the voice of the drowned girl. She has been waiting a long time to tell you her story, and she wants you to remember. Welcome to the Slavic shadow, the Peryn knot. May you find the courage to speak what you have kept silent. And may you never forget that the deepest magic is not in the shells, the stones, or the gods, but in the love that dares to say the words it never said. Chapter 1. The Whispers of the Lake. Year 876. Perun's sanctuary, near Lake Ilmen. At that hour when the sun, like a wounded boar, crawls into the reeds of Ilmen, and the sky turns the color of a bruise, that was the hour Mila loved best. She would slip away from her mother's hut, past the 8 moon-shaped pits where the fires of Perun slept, and down to the burial hill they called the Zhalnik. There the stones stood in a crooked ring, each one a tooth of some ancient giant, and the water lapped at the shore with a sound like an old woman chewing her last words. She wore no finery, only a linen shift that clung to her damp ankles, and about her neck, on a braided cord, hung a small spiral shell, a whisper snail, her mother called it. The shell was polished by generations of palms, and inside it, so the old women said, rested the voice of the first mother of their blood. When Mila pressed it to her ear, she heard not the sea, but a faint, dry rustle, the sound of a soul turning over in its sleep. That evening she was not alone. Volod, Vsevolod, the prince's youngest warrior, waited for her among the birches, his sword belt unbuckled, his Christian cross hidden beneath his tunic. He was a man of straight brows and a crooked smile, and he loved Mila with the reckless hunger of one who has seen too many battles and fears nothing but silence. "You came," he said, his voice low, as if the stones themselves might eavesdrop. "I always come," she answered, and sat beside him on the grass, where the earth was warm from the day's sun. "But tonight my mother knows. She watched me braid my hair, and she said nothing. That is worse than a curse." Vsevolod touched her hand. His fingers were calloused from the reins, but they trembled. "Let us leave. Tonight. There is a boat hidden in the willows. I have dried fish and a flint. We will row to the far shore, to the Christian priests who do not fear your mother's charms." Mila shook her head slowly. She lifted the shell to his ear. "Listen," she whispered. "What do you hear?" He listened. His eyes widened. "I hear a child crying, and water pouring into a dark room." "That is my death," she said quietly. "My mother has already cursed me in her heart. She told me, if you lie with a stranger, you will not die a woman's death. You will become a rusálka, a drowned thing, and you will drag him down with you. And now the shell speaks of water." Vsevolod laughed, but his laugh was hollow, like a birch branch snapping in frost. "Old wives' tales. The priests say the soul is immortal. They say there is no power in the lake that can hold a baptized man." "Then why does your cross feel cold?" she asked, and she placed her palm over his chest. He flinched. The silver of his cross was indeed ice cold, though the night was warm. In that moment, a black cat emerged from the bushes. Not a stray. This cat was known to Mila. She had fed it from her bowl since childhood. Its eyes were white as curdled milk, and it carried in its mouth a second shell, exactly like Mila's. It dropped the shell at her feet, mewed once, and vanished into the fog that rose from the lake like a silent exhalation. Mila picked up the second shell. It was wet, and when she held it to her ear, she heard nothing, a perfect, terrifying silence. That silence was the void left by a soul that had already departed. She knew then that her mother had summoned the cat to bring her own death curse from the water as a sign. "We must not wait," she said, rising. "Not tomorrow. Now. Take me to the boat." But as they ran toward the willow grove, a cry tore the night. Not a human cry, but the shriek of a water bird distorted into a woman's name. "Mila!" It was her mother, standing on the shore, her white hair unbound, her arms raised to the crescent moon. She held a third shell, and from that shell poured a stream of black sand that twisted in the air like a serpent. "You will not cross the water," the mother chanted. "You will become the water. By the bone of Perun, by the milk of the earth, I unmake your breath. I return you to the sponge and the weed." Mila stumbled. The ground beneath her feet turned to mud, then to liquid. Vsevolod grabbed her wrist. but her skin grew slick as a fish's belly. She felt her bones soften, her hair lengthen into kelp-like strands, and her voice turned into a gurgle, a bubble that burst on the surface of Ilmen. He saw her sink. He saw her white shift drift like a ghost's shroud. He dove after her, but the water closed over him like a blind eye, and when he surfaced, gasping, she was gone. Only the black cat sat on a stone, licking its paw, and in its mouth, the second shell, now cracked, weeping a thin trickle of blood. That night, the Vsevolod did not pray. He knelt on the Zholnik, surrounded by the pagan stones, and he swore an oath to the silent sky. I will find her, even in the abyss, even if I must become a rusálka myself. But the oath was useless, for love had already begun to rot in his chest. And the first symptom of that rot was a lightness, a feeling that he was already floating, already dissolving, even as he walked back to the prince's camp. And in the lake, Mila opened her eyes. She saw the stars through a veil of ripples, and she saw the Vsevolod's silhouette receding. She tried to scream, but only bubbles came out, bubbles that spelled his name in a language the water understood. The shell around her neck had become a stone weight, pulling her down, down, into the silt where the bones of the unburied lay tangled with the roots of water lilies. Her mother's curse had done its work, but the mother had not reckoned with the cat, nor with the second shell, the silent one, which was not a curse, but a key. And that key would sleep for 1,000 years, waiting for a hand that did not flinch at the touch of death. Chapter 2. The Bone of the Earth. Present-day archaeological site near Peryn. Anna Nikolaevna had dug through 9 layers of soil, each stratum a page of a book written in charcoal and ash. She had found charred seeds, a broken spindle, a child's tooth, and the remnants of a wooden idol, but nothing that explained the strange acoustic resonance of the site. Every time she scraped her trowel against the clay, a low hum rose from the ground, like a cello string plucked by an invisible hand. She was 32, with a scientist's skepticism and a grandmother's face. The high cheekbones, the gray-green eyes that seemed to change color with the weather. Her grandmother, the last village Znakerka, had died whispering charms into a pillow, and Anna had burned all her notebooks out of shame. She wanted to be modern. She wanted to believe that the past was dust, not blood. But that morning, her trowel struck something that was not stone. It was a spiral, a shell, coiled like a sleeping serpent, no larger than her thumb. It lay in the palm of a skeleton, a small skeleton with delicate ribs, and beside it, the jaw of a cat. The cat's teeth were clamped around the shell's opening, as if guarding it even in death. Anna's assistant, Dmitri, leaned over. A votive offering? They used to put cowrie shells in graves for luck. No, Anna said slowly. This is a freshwater snail, from Lake Ilmen, but the fossil record, it should have been crushed by the silt. This one is whole, and polished. Look, there are scratches on the spiral, human fingernails. She took a pair of tweezers and pried the shell from the cat's jaws. As soon as her skin touched the nacre, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The hum from the ground sharpened into a voice, a girl's voice, speaking in an accent so old that the vowels sounded like leaves rustling. And the cat took it, took my whisper, took the second one, the one without sound. Put it in your ear, daughter. Put it in your ear and hear the silence that was mine. Anna dropped the shell. It clattered onto the excavation board, and the hum ceased. Dmitri looked at her with concern. "You're pale. Have some tea." "I'm fine." But she wasn't. She wrapped the shell in a handkerchief, pocketed it, and drove back to her rented flat in the old merchant quarter of Novgorod. That night she did not sleep. Instead, she sat at her desk, the shell beside her, and tried to convince herself that the hallucination was low blood sugar. She turned the shell over and over. Inside, she saw not a hollow cavity, but a dark residue, something that looked suspiciously like dried blood, but older, blacker, with a metallic sheen. She decided to clean it. She filled a bowl with distilled water and placed the shell in it. Instantly, the water turned milky, then clear again. But the shell began to emit a low, resonant hum, the same hum she had heard at the site. And then, in the reflection of the water, she saw a face, not her own. A girl's face, with soaked hair and eyes that were shut, as if in eternal sleep. Yet the lips moved, forming words without sound. Anna jerked back. The bowl tipped over. Water spilled across the floor, and the shell rolled under the bed. She felt a cold nose touch her ankle. A cat, a black cat with white eyes, stared up at her from the shadows. It was dry, but its paws left wet prints on the linoleum, and in its mouth it carried a second shell, identical to the one she had found, but cracked, oozing a thin red line. "You're not real," Anna whispered. "I locked the door." The cat mewed. The sound was not a mew, it was a word, distorted, almost human. "Mila." Anna reached out to grab it, but the cat slipped away, leaving only a puddle of lake water on the floor. She got down on her hands and knees and looked under the bed. There lay her original shell, intact, and beside it, a single strand of wet greenish hair, as if someone had just emerged from a swim. She touched the hair. It was cold, colder than ice, and it crumbled into salt. That was when she remembered her grandmother's last words, spoken in the haze of fever. "If you ever find the shell that holds the silent voice, do not listen, because the silent voice is the one that speaks the truth, and the truth is that we are all drowned, Anna, all of us, since the day Mila sank." Anna did not sleep that night. She sat in the armchair, the shell clutched in her palm, and she watched the window mist over from the inside. On the glass, a child's finger, or a claw, traced a single word in the condensation. Zhalnik. And beneath it, 5 scratch marks, like a tally of souls. Chapter 3. The Cat of the Mist. Present day, 3 days later. By the third morning, Anna had stopped pretending. She had called in sick to the excavation, cancelled her lecture at the university, and driven to the Zhalnik, the same burial hill she had excavated, but now, in the gray dawn, it looked different. The stones were not gray, they were black, as if roasted by a fire that had never been lit. And the lake? Ilmen lay flat as a mirror, but the mist that rose from it did not disperse. It gathered into shapes, a woman in white, a warrior with a broken sword, a cat that grew larger and larger until it swallowed the horizon. She parked her car a mile away and walked. Her boots squelched in the wet grass, and the ravens above her called out in a language that might have been Old Slavic. She carried the shell in her pocket, and the cracked one, which had appeared under her bed, in her other pocket. She did not know why she brought both, but her grandmother's voice kept whispering in her skull, "The whole and the broken, the breath and the silence. You need both to untie the knot." The Zhalnik was deserted, but in the center of the stone circle someone had placed a fresh offering, a bowl of milk, a crust of black bread, and a sprig of birch. Anna knelt beside it. The milk was still warm. She looked around. No one. Yet the mist continued to swirl, and from the lake came a sound like women laughing, but the laughter was hollow, as if it came from the bottom of a well. Then the cat appeared, not from the bushes, but from the water itself. It walked out of the lake, its fur dripping, its white eyes fixed on Anna with an ancient patience. It sat down before her and lifted its right paw. On that paw was tied a third shell, smaller than the others, made of some translucent material that glowed faintly pink like a baby's fingernail. Anna understood without thinking. She extended her open hand. The cat placed the third shell in her palm, and as it did, a shock of cold ran up her arm, and the mist solidified into a figure. A young woman, no older than 18, with flowing hair the color of wet hay, and a shift that clung to her like a second skin. Her eyes were closed, but she spoke. "You are my blood. You have the whistlebone in your chest, the one that hears the dead. Do not be afraid. I am not the one who kills. I am the one who is killed, again and again, in every daughter. My mother, she drowned me to save herself. She took my body and wore it, and she has worn it for 1,000 summers. Now she wants yours." Anna opened her mouth, but only a squeak came out. The ghost, Mila, reached out a hand, but her fingers passed through Anna's cheek like cold smoke. Yet Anna felt it, a touch, fragile as a spider's thread, and a whisper in her ear. "The cat is my guardian. It carries my silent shell, the one I gave to you in the grave. The shell you found, that was the shell I held when I drowned. But the silent one, the one that spoke no word, that is my true voice. Put it to your ear now, and hear what I could not say while I was alive." Anna, trembling, took the third shell, the glowing pink one, and pressed it to her ear. She heard a pulse, a slow heartbeat, and then a torrent of images, a man's face, Vsevolod, a boat, a mother's angry shriek, the sinking, the cold, and then a promise. Mila had made a promise to the cat before she died. "If I am cursed, I will hide my soul in a shell that cannot be opened except by a descendant who loves without fear." When Anna lowered the shell, the ghost was gone. The cat was gone. The mist had cleared, and the sun was rising over Ilmen, turning the water to molten gold. But on the grass, where the offering had been, there now lay a single object, a knife made of bone, with a handle carved into the shape of a spiral, and beside it a note written in charcoal in the same handwriting as her grandmother's diary. Cut the cord, not your own, the one that ties Mila's mother to the lake. The cord is made of broken shells. You must find the 5 fragments, fit them together, and break them at midnight in the center of the stone circle. Then the mother will be unmade, and Mila will be free. But beware, the mother is clever. She will come to you in the form of someone you love. She will wear your own face. Anna folded the note. She picked up the bone knife. She looked at the lake, and for the first time, she did not see a geological feature. She saw a throat, a dark throat that had swallowed 9 centuries of her family. She saw her grandmother's death, her mother's madness, her own sleepless nights, all of it tied to a spiral shell that hummed with the grief of a drowned girl. She walked back to her car. The cat was sitting on the hood, licking its paw, and on its collar hung a small bell made of what looked like silver. But when Anna touched it, it rang with the sound of ice breaking on a frozen river, and she knew that the hunt had begun. The 3 shells were now in her possession, the whole one from the grave, the cracked one from the floor, and the glowing one from the lake. But she needed 2 more, the fragments of the mother's own curse, which had been scattered across the district, buried in other zhalmiks, under the roots of oaks, in the nests of ravens. And she had exactly 1 week, until the Rusalnaya Nedelia, the week of the Rusalka, before the veil thinned and the mother would rise from the lake to claim her final vessel. Anna started the engine. The cat leaped off the hood and disappeared into the woods. She drove not toward her flat, but toward the village where her grandmother was buried, because she had just remembered that her grandmother, in her last year, had spoken of a shell game, a puzzle passed down from mother to daughter, and she had hidden the solution in the grave itself. Anna would have to exhume her own grandmother to find it. And she would, because the shell in her pocket was pulsing now, like a second heart, and its rhythm matched the beat of the lake, slow, deep, and hungry. Chapter 1. The Whispers of the Lake. Year 876. Perun's Sanctuary, near Lake Ilmen. At that hour when the sun, like a wounded boar, crawls into the reeds of Ilmen, and the sky turns the color of a bruise, that was the hour Mila loved best. She would slip away from her mother's hut, past the 8 moon-shaped pits where the fires of Perun slept, and down to the burial hill they called the zhalmik. There the stones stood in a crooked ring, each one a tooth of some ancient giant, and the water lapped at the shore with a sound like an old woman chewing her last words. She wore no finery, only a linen shift that clung to her damp ankles, and about her neck, on a braided cord, hung a small spiral shell, a whisper snail, her mother called it. The shell was polished by generations of palms, and inside it so the old women said, rested the voice of the first mother of their blood. When Mila pressed it to her ear, she heard not the sea, but a faint, dry rustle, the sound of a soul turning over in its sleep. That evening she was not alone. Volod, Vsevolod, the prince's youngest warrior, waited for her among the birches, his sword belt unbuckled, his Christian cross hidden beneath his tunic. He was a man of straight brows and a crooked smile, and he loved Mila with the reckless hunger of one who has seen too many battles and fears nothing but silence. "You came," he said, his voice low, as if the stones themselves might eavesdrop. "I always come," she answered, and sat beside him on the grass, where the earth was warm from the day's sun. "But tonight my mother knows. She watched me braid my hair, and she said nothing. That is worse than a curse." The Vsevolod touched her hand. His fingers were calloused from the reins, but they trembled. "Let us leave. Tonight. There is a boat hidden in the willows. I have dried fish and a flint. We will row to the far shore, to the Christian priests who do not fear your mother's charms." Mila shook her head slowly. She lifted the shell to his ear. "Listen," she whispered. "What do you hear?" He listened. His eyes widened. "I hear a child crying, and water pouring into a dark room." "That is my death," she said quietly. "My mother has already cursed me in her heart. She told me, if you lie with a stranger, you will not die a woman's death. You will become a rusálka, a drowned thing, and you will drag him down with you. And now the shell speaks of water." Vsevolod laughed, but his laugh was hollow, like a birch branch snapping in frost. "Old wives' tales. The priests say the soul is immortal. They say there is no power in the lake that can hold a baptized man." "Then why does your cross feel cold?" she asked, and she placed her palm over his chest. He flinched. The silver of his cross was indeed ice cold, though the night was warm. In that moment a black cat emerged from the bushes. Not a stray. This cat was known to Mila. She had fed it from her bowl since childhood. Its eyes were white as curdled milk, and it carried in its mouth a second shell, exactly like Mila's. It dropped the shell at her feet, mewed once, and vanished into the fog that rose from the lake like a silent exhalation. Mila picked up the second shell. It was wet, and when she held it to her ear, she heard nothing. A perfect, terrifying silence. That silence was the void left by a soul that had already departed. She knew then that her mother had summoned the cat to bring her own death curse from the water, as a sign. "We must not wait," she said, rising. "Not tomorrow. Now, take me to the boat." But as they ran toward the willow grove, a cry tore the night. Not a human cry, but the shriek of a water bird distorted into a woman's name. "Mila!" It was her mother, standing on the shore, her white hair unbound, her arms raised to the crescent moon. She held a third shell, and from that shell poured a stream of black sand that twisted in the air like a serpent. "You will not cross the water," the mother chanted. "You will become the water. By the bone of Perun, by the milk of the earth, I unmake your breath. I return you to the sponge and the weed. Mila stumbled. The ground beneath her feet turned to mud, then to liquid. Vsevolod grabbed her wrist, but her skin grew slick as a fish's belly. She felt her bones soften, her hair lengthen into kelp-like strands, and her voice turned into a gurgle, a bubble that burst on the surface of Ilmen. He saw her sink. He saw her white shift drift like a ghost's shroud. He dove after her, but the water closed over him like a blind eye, and when he surfaced, gasping, she was gone. Only the black cat sat on a stone, licking its paw, and in its mouth the second shell, now cracked, weeping a thin trickle of blood. That night, Vsevolod did not pray. He knelt on the Zhalnik, surrounded by the pagan stones, and he swore an oath to the silent sky. I will find her, even in the abyss, even if I must become a rusálka myself. But the oath was useless, for love had already begun to rot in his chest, and the first symptom of that rot was a lightness, a feeling that he was already floating, already dissolving, even as he walked back to the prince's camp. And in the lake, Mila opened her eyes. She saw the stars through a veil of ripples, and she saw Vsevolod's silhouette receding. She tried to scream, but only bubbles came out, bubbles that spelled his name in a language the water understood. The shell around her neck had become a stone weight, pulling her down, down, into the silt where the bones of the unburied lay tangled with the roots of water lilies. Her mother's curse had done its work, but the mother had not reckoned with the cat, nor with the second shell, the silent one, which was not a curse, but a key. And that key would sleep for 1,000 years, waiting for a hand that did not flinch at the touch of death. Chapter 2. The Bone of the Earth. Present day, archaeological site near Peryn. Anna Gogoleva had dug through 9 layers of soil, each stratum a page of a book written in charcoal and ash. She had found charred seeds, a broken spindle, a child's tooth, and the remnants of a wooden idol, but nothing that explained the strange acoustic resonance of the site. Every time she scraped her trowel against the clay, a low hum rose from the ground, like a cello string plucked by an invisible hand. She was 32, with a scientist's skepticism and a grandmother's face, the high cheekbones, the gray-green eyes that seemed to change color with the weather. Her grandmother, the last village znacharka, had died whispering charms into a pillow, and Anna had burned all her notebooks out of shame. She wanted to be modern. She wanted to believe that the past was dust, not blood. But that morning, her trowel struck something that was not stone. It was a spiral, a shell coiled like a sleeping serpent, no larger than her thumb. It lay in the palm of a skeleton, a small skeleton with delicate ribs, and beside it, the jaw of a cat. The cat's teeth were clamped around the shell's opening, as if guarding it even in death. Anna's assistant, Dmitri, leaned over. A votive offering? They used to put cowrie shells in graves for luck. No, Anna said slowly. This is a freshwater snail from Lake Ilmen. But the fossil record, it should have been crushed by the silt. This one is whole. and polished. Look, there are scratches on the spiral. Human fingernails. She took a pair of tweezers and pried the shell from the cat's jaws. As soon as her skin touched the nacre, a wave of dizziness washed over her. The hum from the ground sharpened into a voice, a girl's voice, speaking in an accent so old that the vowels sounded like leaves rustling. And the cat took it, took my whisper, took the second one, the one without sound. Put it in your ear, daughter. Put it in your ear and hear the silence that was mine. Anna dropped the shell. It clattered onto the excavation board, and the hum ceased. Dmitri looked at her with concern. "You're pale. Have some tea." "I'm fine." But she wasn't. She wrapped the shell in a handkerchief, pocketed it, and drove back to her rented flat in the old merchant quarter of Novgorod. That night, she did not sleep. Instead, she sat at her desk, the shell beside her, and tried to convince herself that the hallucination was low blood sugar. She turned the shell over and over. Inside, she saw not a hollow cavity, but a dark residue, something that looked suspiciously like dried blood, but older, blacker, with a metallic sheen. She decided to clean it. She filled a bowl with distilled water and placed the shell in it. Instantly, the water turned milky, then clear again, but the shell began to emit a low, resonant hum, the same hum she had heard at the site. And then, in the reflection of the water, she saw a face, not her own. A girl's face, with soaked hair and eyes that were shut as if in eternal sleep, yet the lips moved, forming words without sound. Anna jerked back. The bowl tipped over, water spilled across the floor, and the shell rolled under the bed. She felt a cold nose touch her ankle. A cat, a black cat with white eyes, stared up at her from the shadows. It was dry, but its paws left wet prints on the linoleum, and in its mouth it carried a second shell, identical to the one she had found, but cracked, oozing a thin red line. "You're not real," Anna whispered. "I locked the door." The cat mewed. The sound was not a mew. It was a word, distorted, almost human. "Mila." Anna reached out to grab it, but the cat slipped away, leaving only a puddle of lake water on the floor. She got down on her hands and knees and looked under the bed. There lay her original shell, intact, and beside it, a single strand of wet, greenish hair, as if someone had just emerged from a swim. She touched the hair. It was cold, colder than ice, and it crumbled into salt. That was when she remembered her grandmother's last words, spoken in the haze of fever. "If you ever find the shell that holds the silent voice, do not listen, because the silent voice is the one that speaks the truth, and the truth is that we are all drowned, Anna, all of us, since the day Mila sank." Anna did not sleep that night. She sat in the armchair, the shell clutched in her palm, and she watched the window mist over from the inside. On the glass, a child's finger, or a claw, traced a single word in the condensation. Zalnik. And beneath it, 5 scratch marks, like a tally of souls. Chapter 3. The Cat of the Mist. Present day, 3 days later. By the third morning, Anna had stopped pretending. She had called in sick to the excavation, cancelled her lecture at the university, and driven to the Zalnik, the same burial hill she had excavated, but now, in the gray dawn, it looked different. The stones were not gray, they were black, as if roasted by a fire that had never been lit. And the lake, Ilmen lay flat as a mirror, but the mist that rose from it did not disperse. It gathered into shapes, a woman in white, a warrior with a broken sword, a cat that grew larger and larger until it swallowed the horizon. She parked her car a mile away and walked. Her boots squelched in the wet grass, and the ravens above her called out in a language that might have been Old Slavic. She carried the shell in her pocket, and the cracked one, which had appeared under her bed, in her other pocket. She did not know why she brought both, but her grandmother's voice kept whispering in her skull. The whole and the broken, the breath and the silence. You need both to untie the knot. The Zalnik was deserted, but in the center of the stone circle, someone had placed a fresh offering, a bowl of milk, a crust of black bread, and a sprig of birch. Anna knelt beside it. The milk was still warm. She looked around. No one. Yet the mist continued to swirl, and from the lake came a sound like women laughing, but the laughter was hollow, as if it came from the bottom of a well. Then the cat appeared, not from the bushes, but from the water itself. It walked out of the lake, its fur dripping, its white eyes fixed on Anna with an ancient patience. It sat down before her and lifted its right paw. On that paw was tied a third shell, smaller than the others, made of some translucent material that glowed faintly pink, like a baby's fingernail. Anna understood without thinking. She extended her open hand. The cat placed the third shell in her palm, and as it did, a shock of cold ran up her arm, and the mist solidified into a figure. A young woman, no older than 18, with flowing hair the color of wet hay, and a shift that clung to her like a second skin. Her eyes were closed, but she spoke. You are my blood. You have the whistlebone in your chest, the one that hears the dead. Do not be afraid. I am not the one who kills. I am the one who is killed again and again in every daughter. My mother, she drowned me to save herself. She took my body and wore it, and she has worn it for 1,000 summers. Now she wants yours. Anna opened her mouth, but only a squeak came out. The ghost, Mila, reached out a hand, but her fingers passed through Anna's cheek like cold smoke. Yet Anna felt it, a touch, fragile as a spider's thread, and a whisper in her ear. The cat is my guardian. It carries my silent shell, the one I gave to you in the grave. The shell you found, that was the shell I held when I drowned. But the silent one, the one that spoke no word, that is my true voice. Put it to your ear now, and hear what I could not say while I was alive. Anna, trembling, took the third shell, the glowing pink one, and pressed it to her ear. She heard a pulse, a slow heartbeat, and then a torrent of images. A man's face, the Sevalod, a boat, a mother's angry shriek, the sinking, the cold, and then a promise. Mila had made a promise to the cat before she died. If I am cursed, I will hide my soul in a shell that cannot be opened except by a descendant who loves without fear. When Anna lowered the shell, the ghost was gone. The cat was gone. The mist had cleared, and the sun was rising over Ilmen, turning the water to molten gold. But on the grass, where the offering had been, there now lay a single object, a knife made of bone with a handle carved into the shape of a spiral. And beside it, a note written in charcoal in the same handwriting as her grandmother's diary. Cut the cord, not your own, the one that ties Mila's mother to the lake. The cord is made of broken shells. You must find the 5 fragments, fit them together, and break them at midnight in the center of the stone circle. Then the mother will be unmade, and Mila will be free. But beware, the mother is clever. She will come to you in the form of someone you love. She will wear your own face. Anna folded the note. She picked up the bone knife. She looked at the lake, and for the first time she did not see a geological feature. She saw a throat, a dark throat that had swallowed 9 centuries of her family. She saw her grandmother's death, her mother's madness, her own sleepless nights, all of it tied to a spiral shell that hummed with the grief of a drowned girl. She walked back to her car. The cat was sitting on the hood, licking its paw, and on its collar hung a small bell made of what looked like silver. But when Anna touched it, it rang with the sound of ice breaking on a frozen river, and she knew that the hunt had begun. The 3 shells were now in her possession, the whole one from the grave, the cracked one from the floor, and the glowing one from the lake. But she needed 2 more, the fragments of the mother's own curse, which had been scattered across the district, buried in other zalniks, under the roots of oaks, in the nests of ravens. And she had exactly 1 week until the Rusalnaya Nedelia, the week of the Rusalka, before the veil thinned, and the mother would rise from the lake to claim her final vessel. Anna started the engine. The cat leaped off the hood and disappeared into the woods. She drove not toward her flat, but toward the village where her grandmother was buried, because she had just remembered that her grandmother, in her last year, had spoken of a shell game, a puzzle passed down from mother to daughter, and she had hidden the solution in the grave itself. Anna would have to exhume her own grandmother to find it. And she would, because the shell in her pocket was pulsing now like a second heart, and its rhythm matched the beat of the lake, slow, deep, and hungry. Chapter 7. The Cat's Confession. Anna drove home in a daze of exhausted peace. The sunset bled over Novgorod like a wound that was finally healing. She pulled into her parking lot, killed the engine, and sat for a long moment, letting the silence heal her ears. No hum, no whisper, just the ordinary creak of a settling car. Then the cat appeared on her dashboard, not outside the windshield, on the inside. It sat on the glove compartment, white as fresh snow, with eyes of amber that held the smugness of a creature who had just watched a human do all the heavy lifting. "You're white now," Anna said flatly. "Congratulations, you've been reborn. Do you want a saucer of milk, or do you just want to haunt my upholstery?" The cat yawned. Its tongue was pink, mercifully normal. But when it spoke, its voice was that of a weary old woman who had seen too many centuries to bother with politeness. "Milk would be lovely, actually, but we don't have time. You broke the mother's cord. Well done. Applause. But you also opened the back door of the underworld, and something crawled out while you were having your little cathartic weep on the grass." Anna's peace shattered like a dropped teacup. "What do you mean, something crawled out?" The cat licked its paw, utterly unbothered. "You see, darling, the mother wasn't the curse. The mother was the lock. She kept the door shut by being so terribly, tragically grief-stricken that nothing else could pass through. But you, in your infinite compassion, forgave her. You let her cross over, and now the door is wide open," Anna finished. Her voice was dangerously quiet. You knew this would happen. You let me do it anyway." "Of course I knew," the cat said, and its eyes flickered with ancient annoyance. "I am the guardian of the threshold, not a nanny. My job is to guide the soul, not to keep the universe tidy. Besides, you needed to save Mila. She was the innocent. The thing that crawled out, that thing is the guilty one. The Sevalad's cross wasn't a cross, Anna. It was a prison, and you just turned the key." Anna grabbed the cat by the scruff. It did not struggle. It simply dangled, limp and smug, like a furry pendulum. "Tell me, now, what is it?" The cat sighed. "Put me down, you brute. I'll tell you, but you won't like it." The cross held the spirit of a monk, a man named Roman, who lived in the 10th century. He was a missionary. He came to the lake to convert the pagans, but he fell in love with a rusálka. Not Mila, a different one, a cruel one. She toyed with him, seduced him, and left him to drown in the shallows. He survived, but his heart turned to salt. He became a hunter. He bound his own rage into the iron of his cross, and he vowed that any rusálka who loved a mortal would be cursed 1,000-fold. He attached his spirit to Vsevolad's cross to watch, to savor, and when the mother dissolved, his cage rusted open. Anna dropped the cat. She sat back in her driver's seat, staring at the steering wheel as if it held the answers. "So we have a 1,000-year-old incel monk with a supernatural grudge running around Novgorod. Fantastic. What does he want?" "Revenge," the cat said simply. "Not on you, on every woman who has ever loved freely. He will find the nearest descendant of that old rusálka who jilted him, and he will propose to her. If she refuses, he will turn her into a pillar of salt. If she accepts, he will drag her into the lake and drown her anyway. He is not a romantic. He is an accountant of pain. And his first target, well, you have a mirror in your bag, don't you?" Anna opened her handbag. The compact mirror she used for lipstick was glowing faintly, and inside it reflected not her own face, but the face of a man, young, stern, with eyes like black ice and a tonsure shaved into his scalp. He wore a monk's robe. He was smiling. The smile was the worst part. It was not cruel. It was earnest. "Hello," the mirror said, in a voice that sounded like a choir of castrati. "You must be Anna. I've waited centuries to meet a woman who can break curses. Will you marry me?" Anna snapped the compact shut. "He's in my mirror?" "He's in every reflective surface," the cat said, with an almost cheerful morbidness. "He's been waiting for a worthy bride. You just graduated top of the class. Congratulations, darling. You're the most interesting woman in Russia. He's going to serenade you until you say yes, or until you turn into a salt lick." Anna got out of the car, walked to her flat, and locked every door. The cat followed her inside and immediately jumped onto her bookshelf, knocking over a copy of Dostoevsky. Anna stared at the mirror in her hallway. Her own reflection stared back, but behind her shoulder, just faintly, stood the monk. He was not touching her. He was just present, like a bad smell. "I refuse," she said loudly. The reflection smiled wider. "Refusal is just a prelude to persuasion. I have 1,000 years of poetry memorized. I can quote the Song of Songs in 7 dead languages. I can make the waters sing. I can make you laugh. I can make you weep. And in the end, you will say yes, because no one refuses me twice." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." His voice softened, and for a moment he looked almost sad. "I loved her, you know, the rusálka. I loved her with every fiber of my righteous soul. And she drowned me not because she hated me, but because she found my love boring. I was too virtuous, too slow, too human. She wanted a storm, and I gave her a hymn. So now I find women who are storms, women like you, and I offer them the one thing she never offered me, eternal attention. Is that so terrible?" Anna walked up to the mirror and pressed her palm against the glass. "Yes, it's terrible, because you're not offering love. You're offering a sentence. You were hurt, and now you want to hurt everyone who reminds you of her. That's not romance. That's recycling your own trauma." The monk laughed. It was a beautiful laugh, bell clear. "Trauma? What a modern word. In my day, we called it righteous fury. But fine, you are not convinced. I will give you 3 days. 3 days to say yes. If you don't, I will take the next best thing, your black cat. I'll make her my bride, and she'll walk on 2 legs and hate every moment of it. Save her, Anna. Save the creature who guided you. Or marry me. The choice is yours." He vanished from the mirror. Anna turned to the cat. "He can do that? He can turn you human?" The cat groomed its ear, utterly unimpressed. "He can try, but I have 9 lives, and 9 is a number with a lot of opinions. However, I would rather not be a bride. I am a guardian. We don't do weddings. We do solemn vows and occasional fish offerings. So you'd better figure out how to unmonk him, or we're both in for a very awkward eternity. Chapter 8. The Library of Echoes. Anna spent the next day searching every archive in Novgorod for records of a monk named Roman. She found nothing. The libraries were silent, the priests unhelpful. The old women in the markets merely crossed themselves when she mentioned the name. But the cat, who had taken to riding on her shoulder like a pirate's parrot, nudged her toward the city's oldest museum, a converted monastery called the Palace of Antiquities. "He's in the basement," the cat whispered, loud enough for a passing toddler to hear. "Buried under a stone that was once his bed. That's where the anchor lies, his physical remains. If you salt them, no, wait, if you bless them, no, that's too easy. If you feed them to the lake, he dissolves. But you have to do it at sunset, and you have to say his full name, and you have to mean it." Anna found the basement. It was locked, but the cat squeezed through a gap in the iron grate and unlatched the door from the inside. She descended into the cold, damp darkness. Shelves lined the walls, filled with broken icons and rusted censers. At the center of the room, on a low stone slab, lay the skeleton of a man, tall, long-limbed, with a skull that still grinned. Anna held the bone knife over the skull. "I am not going to marry a ghost. I am going to unbride you. This is your final notice." The skeleton's jaw creaked open. The monk's voice came from the bones themselves, rattling and dusty. "You'd kill a dead man? How cruel! And here I thought you were a healer. Let me count the ways you are not a man," Anna said, her voice cold as the lake in February. "You are a grudge. You are a tantrum in a cassock. You are a lover who never learned that rejection is not a wound, it's a lesson. And I am going to teach you the lesson you missed, that love is not ownership. Love is a door, not a cage." The skeleton began to tremble. The bones clattered, and from the dust a figure rose. A translucent monk, his hands folded in prayer, his eyes burning with an inner fire. "You cannot change me," he said. "I am immutable. I am eternal. I am—" "Boring," the cat interrupted, hopping onto the slab. "You are dreadfully, tediously, incurably boring. You died 1,000 years ago, and you still haven't come up with a new line. Marry me? That's the best you've got? I've heard better pickup lines from a drowned rat." Roman's ghost flickered with indignation. "How dare you?" "Shut up," Anna said, and she said it with such finality that even the cat blinked. "You had a tragedy. I get it. A woman broke your heart. But you know what? That woman was a rusálka. She was literally designed to lure men to their deaths. You walked into the trap, and you blame her for doing her job? That's like blaming a bear for eating your picnic. You were the one who sat down in the woods with honey on your fingers. Roman's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Anna lifted the skull and held it close to her chest. I am not going to salt you. I'm not going to exercise you. I am going to listen. Tell me her name. The rusálka who broke you. Tell me her name, and I will find her grave. I will put a flower on it. I will tell her you forgave her. And maybe, just maybe, you will finally stop talking about it and move on. The ghost swayed. Her name was Zlata. Zlata, Anna repeated. Golden. She was golden, and you tried to cage her in your golden cross. But gold doesn't cage, Roman. Gold just sits there, waiting to be stolen. She stole your heart. Let her keep it. It's been 1,000 years. You don't need it anymore. Roman's ghost began to weep. Not tears, but light, silver droplets that fell to the stone floor and vanished. I loved her. I loved her so much that I became a monster. No, Anna said, and she reached out and touched his transparent cheek. You became a monster because you refused to let the love change you. Love changes you, Roman. That's the whole point. If you don't change, you don't love. You just own. Roman looked at her. For the first time, his eyes were not ice. They were water, moving, flowing, alive. Will you take me to her grave? He whispered. The cat snorted. Oh, for the love of... Now you've done it. You've adopted a dead monk. You're a rehabilitation center for lost souls. Anna smiled. Shut up, cat. Roman, let's go. We have a boat to catch, and a grave to find. Chapter 9. The Grave of Zlata. They found the grave at midnight on a tiny island in Lake Ilmen that appeared on no map. The cat, of course, knew where it was. She led them through the reeds, her white fur glinting like a lantern. Zlata's grave was marked by a single stone, flat and gray, engraved with a spiral, the same symbol as the shells. Anna knelt beside it. Roman's ghost hovered behind her, his hands trembling. Did she love you back? Anna asked quietly. At the end, Roman whispered. When I was drowning, she tried to save me. She pulled me to the shore. She breathed air into my lungs. But I was so angry, so certain she had betrayed me, that I pushed her away. I walked into the church and I forged the curse. I cursed her to never be loved again. And she wept. She wept until she turned to salt. Anna touched the stone. It was warm, not cold. She's been waiting, Roman. She's been waiting for you to come back. The ghost stepped forward. He knelt beside the stone, his translucent hands pressed to the spiral. Zlata, he breathed. Zlata, I'm sorry. I was a fool. I was a hurt child who built a throne of bones. Forgive me. The stone cracked. From the crack, a golden light emerged, not a ghost, but a presence. A woman's voice, soft as velvet. I always forgave you, Roman. I was waiting for you to forgive yourself. The light rose, twined around the ghost, and together, monk and rusálka, they ascended into the sky like a double helix of forgiveness. Anna sat back on her heels. The cat sat beside her, grooming her whiskers. Well, the cat said, that was positively nauseating. Beautiful, but nauseating. You've redeemed a monster, freed a rusálka, and made a ghost cry. What's next on your agenda? World peace? Anna laughed. It was the first true laugh she had let out in years. I think I'm done with curses for a while. I'm going to go home, drink tea, and write a very boring article about pottery shards. Liar, the cat purred. You're going to adopt me, aren't you? Anna scooped up the cat, tucked her under her arm, and walked back through the reeds. The dawn was breaking over Ilmen, pink, gold, and utterly peaceful. Your name is now Marmalade, Anna said, because you are sweet, absurd, and sticky in all the wrong ways. The cat hissed. I am a 1,000-year-old guardian of the threshold. You will not call me Marmalade. Hello, Marmalade, Anna said, and she kept walking. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the lake was just a lake, and the dead were finally, mercifully, silent. Chapter 10. The Man Who Wasn't There. Anna found Dmitri 3 days later, wandering the banks of the Volkhov River in his underwear, mumbling fragments of old church Slavonic. He was barefoot, his feet shredded by stones, and he carried a single birch twig in his hand like a scepter. Anna, he said when he saw her. His voice was hoarse, but his eyes were clear. Too clear. Anna, I saw her. The mother. She took me into the lake. She showed me everything. The drowning, the curse, the shells. She made me relive it for 3 days. 3 days of drowning and surfacing, drowning and surfacing. I think she was trying to teach me something. Anna sat beside him on the riverbank. Marmalade, the cat, hopped off her shoulder and sniffed Dmitri's twig with great suspicion. What did she teach you? Anna asked gently. Dmitri looked at the river. She taught me that I am not Dmitri. He turned to her. His face was the same, but his eyes, they were the eyes of a man who had seen the womb of the world. I was never Dmitri. I mean, I am Dmitri, but I'm also his great-grandfather, and his great-grandfather before that. The mother pulled me into the bloodline. She showed me that I carry all of them, every man who ever loved a rusálka and died for it. I'm a legion in a single skin. Marmalade mewed. Oh, wonderful. A man with multiple personality disorder and a fishing rod. This is exactly what we needed." Anna ignored the cat. "Are you okay? Did she hurt you?" Dmitri laughed, a deep, rumbling laugh that was not his. It was the laugh of an old fisherman, a prince, a priest, a peasant. "Hurt me? Anna, she healed me. She broke the cord of silence in my family. My father never spoke. My grandfather never cried. Now I know why. They were all holding the breath of the drowned. I can breathe now. I can breathe for all of them." He stood up, dropped the twig, and embraced Anna so tightly that she felt his ribs, too many ribs, as if he had grown an extra set. "I have to go," he said. "Go where?" "To the sacred grove, the Perun's oak, the lightning-struck one. There's something there that doesn't belong, a nest of iron. I saw it in the vision. The mother showed me. She said, 'Take your friend, take the cat, and burn what was never meant to be hatched.'" Anna looked at Marmalade. The cat's amber eyes were wide, her tail frozen mid-flick. "He's right," the cat said, her voice unusually quiet. "I felt it too. When we freed the mother, when we unbroke the monk, something else woke up. Something that was buried before the Russians came, before the Varangians, before the Slavs. Something that has been waiting for the door to open. And it's not a ghost. It's not a curse. It's a god that was forgotten, a god who wants to be remembered. And he doesn't want flowers. He wants thunder. And a bride." Anna felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn wind. "Perun. You're talking about Perun himself." The cat nodded slowly. "Perun is not a myth, Anna. He is a force. He was bound to the lake by the first mother, Mila's ancestor, who loved him and betrayed him. She stole his hammer and threw it into the sea. He has been impotent ever since. But the mother's release loosened the bindings, and now the hammer is rising from the silt, and when it reaches the surface, Perun will have his power back, and he will not be pleased." Dmitri picked up a stone and skipped it across the river. It bounced 9 times. "The oak," he repeated. "We have to go to the oak. Tonight. Midnight. The iron nest. Burn it." Marmalade leaped onto Dmitri's shoulder, clawing his bare skin. "You lead. I'll guard. Anna, bring the bone knife. And bring your rage. You'll need it." Anna pulled the bone knife from her belt. It was warm now, pulsing with a heartbeat that was not her own. "Let's go," she said, and they walked toward the ancient oak, the 3 of them, a historian, a man with 1,000 ancestors, and a cat who had once been a princess. Chapter 11. The Princess of the Whiskers. They reached the oak as the moon rose, bloated and yellow, like an old wound. The nest was there, a tangle of iron wires, rusted into a shape that looked like a bird's cradle, but larger, more deliberate. Inside the cradle lay a single object, a hammerhead, black as obsidian, etched with runes that seemed to move in the moonlight. Anna reached for it. Marmalade hissed, "Don't touch. That is the finger of Perun. It will burn you to cinders. You have to speak to it first. You have to introduce yourself." and you have to do it in the old tongue." Anna stepped back. "I don't speak Old Slavonic. You speak it. You do it." The cat sighed. "Fine, but if I turn into a fried whisker, you're paying for my funeral." She stepped onto the iron nest, her white fur glowing in the moonlight, and opened her mouth. What came out was not a mew. It was a song, ancient and terrible, full of vows that sounded like wind through a dead forest. She sang, "Perun, sin neba, sin groma, ti spa ti siachu let, vstani nonne sgnevom, slubovju. Ja vedana, knia ginya, umaraju tvoje rukoj, nova skresaju tvoje dushoj." Perun, son of sky, son of thunder, you slept 1,000 years. Rise, but not in anger, in love. I, Vedana, princess, die by your hand, but I rise by your soul. The hammer trembled, the iron nest glowed orange hot, and from the sky a single lightning bolt struck the hammer, splintering the oak, throwing Anna and Dmitri to the ground. When they looked up, the cat was no longer a cat. She was a woman, tall, pale, with hair the color of silver birch bark and eyes like twin lightning storms. She wore a gown of gray silk, torn at the edges, and her bare feet hovered a finger's width above the ground. "Hello, Anna," said the woman, in a voice that was the cat's voice, but deeper, richer. "I told you I was a princess. You thought I was joking. I never joke about my ancestry." Anna scrambled to her feet. You were human? All this time?" Vedana laughed. It was the same sardonic, smug laugh, but now it came from a human throat. "I was cursed by Perun to walk the earth as a cat until I found a soul who could release him from his sleep. You released the mother, which released the monk, which unbound the bindings on Perun's hammer, but you didn't know that. I knew. I've been playing the long game for 11 centuries. Dmitri clutched his chest. "You used us. You used Anna's grief, her love, her bravery. You used it to wake a god." Vedana's expression softened. "I used you? No, I guided you. The shells, the bones, the knife, the cat. All of it was necessary, but I didn't make Anna choose to forgive. I didn't make Roman forgive himself. Those were their choices, their gifts. I simply opened the windows and let the air in. And now Perun is awake, and he is not angry. He is curious." The hammer floated up from the nest. It spun slowly, and from it a voice emerged, a bass rumble that shook the ground. "Vedana, you kept your promise. You found a mortal who could break the chains of grief, and she broke them not by force, but by tenderness. I did not expect tenderness. I expected war, but tenderness is thunder in a different key. Step forward, Anna of Novgorod." Anna stepped forward, her heart pounding like a war drum. "I don't want anything from you, Perun. I just want the lake to be quiet. I want my friends to be safe. I want to go home and sleep without dreaming of drowning." The thunder god laughed, a sound like a distant storm. "You are the first mortal who has ever told me they want nothing. That makes you the most dangerous of all." Very well. I will grant your wish. The lake will be quiet. The dead will stay dead. And you, Anna, you will live a long, peaceful life. But once in your life, when you feel a thunderstorm coming, you will remember me, and you will smile, and that will be my payment. A smile from a woman who faced the abyss and called it by its name. The hammer sank back into the nest. The nest collapsed into rust, and the oak, black and charred, began to sprout new leaves, green, tender, alive. The Donna the princess looked at Anna. Her form flickered. For a moment she was a cat again. Then she was a woman. Then a cat. Then a woman. I can't hold the shape, she admitted. The curse is not fully broken. I need one more thing. I need to be named by someone who loves me, not as a princess, not as a guardian, as a friend. Anna, will you name me? Anna looked at the woman who had been her cat, her guide, her sarcastic shadow. She thought of all the times the cat had saved her, mocked her, driven her to madness. I name you, Anna said, Marmalade, because you are orange in spirit, because you are sticky in your wisdom, because you are sweet in your cruelty. Marmalade. The Donna cried. Her tears turned to amber, and then she was a cat again, but a cat with a golden collar, a collar that bore a single rune, heart. Good enough, the cat said. Now can we go home? I want a saucer of milk and a very long nap. Anna picked her up. Dmitri, trembling, put his arm around Anna's shoulder. They walked back through the forest, the new leaves of the oak whispering behind them. Chapter 12. The Silence of the Lake. 6 months later, Anna sat on the balcony of her flat, watching the sunset over Novgorod. The shells were displayed in a glass case on her bookshelf, 5 of them, plus the clear tear that had saved Roman. The bone knife sat beside them, harmless now, a relic of a time when she had danced with gods. Marmalade curled on her lap, purring. The cat no longer spoke in human words. She spoke in dreams, in nudges, and the occasional pointed stare. But Anna understood her perfectly. Dmitri had recovered. He had quit archaeology and opened a small bakery near the river. He called it the Shell and the Loaf. He baked bread with sea salt, and old women swore it could cure heartbreak. Anna was writing a book. It was not an academic monograph. It was a novel, a story about a girl who drowned and a girl who saved her, about a cat who was a princess and a monk who learned to forgive. She called it The Whisper of the Lake. One evening, as she typed the final sentence, and the lake was quiet, and the dead were finally silent, and the living learned to speak, the sky darkened. Thunder rolled, distant but unmistakable. Anna smiled. The cat opened one amber eye. You remember, the cat's voice whispered in her mind. I remember, Anna said. The thunder rolled again, softer this time, like a god humming a lullaby. Anna closed her laptop. She stroked Marmalade's fur. She listened to the silence of the lake, that deep, ancient silence that was no longer a threat, but a promise. And she lived, as Perun had promised, a long and peaceful life. But every time a storm came, she would walk to the shore of Ilmen, and she would whisper into the wind, "I forgive you. I forgive all of you. And I remember." And the lake would glimmer, and the dead would smile in their sleep. Chapter 13. The Island That Never Was. Anna was 43 when the knock came. She had aged well, not gracefully, because grace was for saints and swans, but honestly. Her hair was streaked with gray like the first frost on a birch, and her eyes carried the weight of a woman who had once negotiated with thunder. She wrote books, drank tea, and fed Marmalade expensive sardines. The knock came at midnight, which was the hour when the dead grew chatty and the living grew wise. She opened the door. A raven stood on the threshold. Not a man dressed as a raven, an actual raven, with feathers like oil slicks and eyes like polished coal. In its beak it held a single feather, golden tipped, and a scroll sealed with wax that breathed. Marmalade shot off the sofa, her fur bristling. "Don't take it," she hissed in Anna's mind. "That's the feather of a firebird. That's not a gift. That's a summons." Anna took the feather. It burned her palm, but not with heat, with memory. She saw a sea of glass, an island of white stone, a tower that spiraled into the clouds, and a face she had seen before, the face of Perun, but younger, wilder, with lightning in his smile. The scroll unrolled itself. The words were written in charcoal, in Old Slavonic, but Anna could read them as easily as her own name. Anna of the broken shells. The mother is free. The monk is forgiven. The cat is named. But the island of Buyan weeps. The sun has forgotten how to rise there. The moon has forgotten how to set. A stone lies at the center of the island. That stone is the first curse. The curse that cursed all curses. Come, bring the cat, bring the knife, leave the bones at home, and never, never, never drink the water. The one who holds the whirlpool. Anna read it 3 times. Then she folded the scroll, tucked the golden feather into her hair, and looked at Marmalade. "You knew this was coming," she said. It was not an accusation, it was a fact. "Of course I knew," the cat said, licking her paw with practiced nonchalance. "Buyan is where I was born. It's where Perun first cursed me. It's where the first mother, the one before Mila's mother, stole the hammer. The stone at the center is the keystone of the world. If it cracks, the whole sea floods. If it stays, the sun dies. You have to fix it, or we all drown in darkness." Anna walked to the bookshelf, opened the glass case, and pulled out the bone knife. It pulsed with a faint warmth, as if it remembered the blood it had tasted. "I'm 53. I have arthritis in my left knee. I haven't slept through the night in a decade. And you want me to sail to a mythical island to talk to a stone?" "You don't sail," the cat said. "You fly. The raven will carry you. It's a long flight. Bring snacks." Anna looked at the raven. The raven blinked. It was not a comforting blink. "Fine," she said, "but if I die, I'm haunting you for eternity." "Promises, promises," the cat purred. Chapter 14. The Flight of the Bone. The raven grew. It swelled until it was the size of a horse, its feathers rustling like 1,000 dry leaves. Anna climbed onto its back with the bone knife strapped to her belt and the cat clutched in her arms. She had packed a thermos of tea, 3 packets of biscuits, and a copy of Pushkin's poetry for morale. They rose into the sky. Novgorod shrank to a patch of lights, then to a pinprick, then to nothing. They flew north, over forests that looked like moss, over rivers that looked like veins, over the sea that looked like a frozen scream. The flight took 3 days. On the first day, they saw the sun set and rise 4 times, because they were crossing the edge of the world where time became a suggestion. On the second day, they saw whales that sang in harmony, their songs spelling out ancient warnings in the water. On the third day, they saw Buyan. It rose from the sea like a pearl from an oyster, white cliffs, black sand, a single spiral tower at its center. The sky above it was a bruise, purple and green, and the sun hung low and lazy, refusing to climb. The raven landed on the black sand. Anna slid off, her legs shaking. Marmalade leaped onto the ground and immediately sneezed. "Same smell," she said. "Sulfur, salt, and regret. I haven't been here in 1,100 years, and it still smells like my grandmother's kitchen after she burned the borscht." Anna looked around. The island was empty. No birds, no trees, no sound but the distant murmur of the sea. At the center, she could see the tower, a twisted spire of white stone that seemed to grow out of the earth like a fang. "Is it guarded?" she asked. "Only by the one who guards it," the cat said. "And that one is, well, you'll see." They walked toward the tower. As they approached, the sand began to shimmer, and from the shimmer a figure emerged. It was a woman, tall and old, with hair of silver and eyes of gold. She wore a gown made of fish scales, and her feet were bare, but they did not touch the ground. "Anna," said the woman. Her voice was the sound of the tide coming in. "I am Zoria, the dawn. I am the one who opens the gates of the sky each morning, and I have been failing." Anna stopped. "You're a goddess. Why are you failing?" Zoria sighed, a sound that shook the waves. "Because the stone at the center of this island is the stone of forgetting. It was placed here by the first mother, the one who loved Perun and betrayed him. She made it to wipe the memory of love from the world. She wanted to end all love, so no one would ever hurt as she did. But she forgot that forgetting is itself a wound. Now the stone has grown. It is swallowing the sky. Every dawn I try to open the gates, and the stone whispers, 'Why bother? No one remembers you.' And I begin to forget. I forget the sun. I forget the moon. I forget my own name." Anna stepped forward. "How do I break the stone?" "You don't break it," Zoria said. "You remember it. You look at it and you say, 'I remember you were placed here in grief. I remember the mother who loved too fiercely. I remember her name. But the mother's name has been lost. Even I cannot recall it." The cat bristled. "Her name was Radmila. She was my grandmother. I remember her. I remember her crying over the hammer. crying because she had stolen it and could not return it. She loved Perun so much that she broke his power to keep him from starting a war. She was not evil. She was terrified. Zoria's eyes widened. Radmilla. Yes. That name is the key. Anna marched toward the tower. The door was a slab of black obsidian etched with a spiral, the same spiral as the shells. She placed her palm on the spiral and the door swung open. Inside, the stone sat on a pedestal. It was small, no larger than her fist, but it pulsed with a dark light. It whispered, "Why remember? Forgetting is easier. Forgetting is peace. Let me help you forget the pain. Forget the mother. Forget the cat. Forget the love that failed." Anna picked up the stone. It was cold, colder than the abyss, and it tried to invade her mind. She saw her grandmother's grave, her mother's madness, her own sleepless nights. The stone whispered, "Let go. Let it all go." "No," Anna said, and her voice was iron. I remember Radmilla. I remember her tears. I remember her hand shaking as she dropped the hammer into the sea. I remember her love, not her hate, her love, and I forgive her. I forgive all of you, every mother who cursed, every daughter who drowned, every monk who raged, every god who slept. The stone cracked. The tower shook. The sky outside split open, and the sun, the true sun, golden and enormous, rose from the sea, flooding the island with light. Zariah wept. Her tears were diamonds. She touched Anna's shoulder and whispered, Thank you for remembering." Chapter 15. The Return of the Light. Anna stepped out of the tower. The island had transformed. White flowers grew from the black sand. Birds sang in a language that was older than language. And the sea was no longer gray. It was blue, the blue of a child's first sky. Perun stood on the shore. He was not the booming god of thunder. He was a man, young, tired, with a hammer in his hand and a smile on his face. "You remembered her," he said. "Radmilla. I have not spoken her name in 1,000 years. I was too angry. But you spoke it with forgiveness. And I realize now that she did not betray me. She saved me. She took my hammer so I would not kill the world in my rage. She loved me enough to make me weak." Anna sat down on the sand. She was exhausted, hungry, and her left knee was screaming. "So now what? You rule the sky again? You start throwing lightning bolts?" Perun laughed. "No, I learned my lesson. The lesson that took 1,000 years and a mortal woman to teach. Power is not the ability to destroy. Power is the ability to remember. I will hold the sky, but I will not rage. I will whisper, not thunder. And I will visit you, Anna of the broken shells, in your dreams. I will bring you rain for your garden, and I will never, ever let you forget." He knelt and placed the hammer on the sand. The hammer sank into the earth, and from it grew a single oak, an oak that would stand for another 1,000 years. Marmalade jumped onto Anna's lap. "Well," the cat said, "I suppose that's that. You saved the world. Again. You're getting boring, Anna. You need to learn to fail once in a while. It builds character. Anna stroked the cat's fur. I failed plenty. I failed to save the mother. I failed to save Roman. I failed to understand the shells until the very end. But failure is just a door that hasn't been opened yet. The raven returned, smaller now, its feathers gray with age. It offered its back. Take me home, Anna said. I have a book to finish, and biscuits to eat. They flew back across the sea, across the rivers, across the forests. The sun was setting, but it was a gentle setting, a slow, golden goodbye. Anna arrived in Novgorod at dawn. She walked into her flat, collapsed on the sofa, and fell asleep with the cat on her chest. When she woke, the shells were glowing, not with magic, with memory. Each shell held a single word: remember, forgive, release, love, live. Anna smiled. She wrote those 5 words on the first page of her new book, and she began to write the story of the island, the stone, and the woman who remembered the name that saved the sun. Chapter 16. The Daughter of the Broken Shells. Lada was 17, and she was furious. Not at her mother. Anna had been a perfectly adequate parent, full of bedtime stories about drowning and forgiveness. No, Lada was furious at the universe for being so spectacularly boring. She lived in an age of screens and silence, where the only magic came from electric sockets, and the only monsters were the ones in her maths textbook. Then she found the shells. They were in her mother's study, behind a glass case that had been locked since Lada could remember. But Anna had grown careless in her old age. The key hung on a hook, and the lock was rusty. Lada opened the case, picked up the white shell, and held it to her ear. She heard a scream. Not a human scream, a godly scream, like a mountain collapsing into the sea. She dropped the shell, but it was too late. The spiral on the shell began to spin, and a voice, deep and ancient, crawled into her ear. Daughter of the Rememberer, you have touched the keystone. The world is not as your mother left it. The stone of forgetting was cracked, but not destroyed. Its fragments have scattered. Each fragment holds a memory of pain. You must gather them, or the forgetting will begin again, and this time no one will remember even the name of the sun. Lada stood there, the shell burning in her palm, and she did what any reasonable teenager would do. She screamed for her mother. Anna rushed into the room, Marmalade at her heels. The cat's amber eyes widened. Oh no, she touched the shell. She touched the shell and it spoke to her. That's not supposed to happen. That means she's the next one, the next keeper, the next victim. Anna grabbed Lada's shoulders. What did it say? Tell me everything. Lada, still trembling, repeated the words. When she finished, Anna paled. The fragments, she whispered. I thought I had broken the curse. I thought the stone was gone. But it was a stone of forgetting. It can't be destroyed, only scattered. And now the fragments are out there, buried in the earth, waiting to be found. If they come together, they'll reform the stone, and the forgetting will start all over again." "Worse," Marmalade said, her voice unusually grim. "If they reform, they won't just erase memory. They'll erase existence. Everyone who was ever touched by the curse, Mila, Vsevolod, the mother, Raman, Radmila, even me, will cease to have ever existed. Your mother's story will be a lie. Your own birth will be a void. It will be as if we never were." Lada looked at her mother. "So I have to find the fragments before they find each other?" Anna nodded. "We both do. But Lada, this is dangerous. The fragments are not just stones. They are traps. Each one holds the memory of a specific pain, a betrayal, a loss, a heartbreak. To collect them, you have to feel that pain. You have to live it. You might not survive." Lada looked at her reflection in the glass case. She saw a girl with her mother's gray-green eyes and a stubborn chin that had never backed down from anything. "Good," she said. "I was bored anyway." Chapter 17. The First Fragment. The Memory of a Mother. The first fragment was buried in the garden of a ruined church, 70 kilometers north of Novgorod. Lada drove there with Anna and Marmalade, the bone knife on the back seat, the shells in a velvet pouch. The church was a skeleton. Its roof had collapsed, leaving only the walls, and the altar was overgrown with wild roses. In the center of the nave, a single stone protruded from the dirt, gray, unremarkable, but when Lada stepped close, she heard a woman weeping. "Lada, stop," Anna said. "Let me do it. I'm older. I can handle the pain." "No," Lada said. "It's my turn. I touched the shell. I started this. I will finish it." She knelt and dug her fingers into the soil. The stone was cold, colder than ice, and as soon as her skin touched it, she was inside the memory. She was a woman, young, pregnant, weeping in a dark room. A man stood over her, a man with a face like a storm. Perun. He was not the gentle god Anna had met. He was raging. "You stole my hammer," he thundered. "You gave it to the mother of all curses, and now I am weak. I am mortal. I will die, and you will carry my child into a world without thunder." The woman, Radmila, looked up at him. Her eyes were swollen with tears. "I did it to save you. You were going to kill the sea. You were going to kill the land. You were going to kill everything because you were angry. I took the hammer so you would not become a monster. I love you too much to let you destroy yourself." Perun's face twisted. "Love? You call this love? You call stealing my power, my purpose, myself, you call that love?" He turned and walked away. The woman, Radmila, cried into her hands, and her tears turned to stone. That stone was the first fragment. It was the memory of a mother who loved a god and lost him. Lada pulled her hand back, gasping. Tears streamed down her face. She had felt every moment of Radmila's grief, the betrayal, the fear, the desperate hope that love could conquer fury. "I have it," she whispered. "I have the first fragment." Anna knelt beside her. "Lada, you're bleeding." Lada looked at her palm. The stone had cut her, and the wound was not bleeding blood. It was bleeding light, a faint golden glow. "That's the sign," Marmalade said. "You're absorbing the fragments. When you have all 5, the light in your palm will be complete. And then—" "Then what?" Lada asked. "Then you'll have to decide. Use the fragments to reform the stone and destroy it forever, or use them to remake the world in your own image. Because a stone of forgetting can also be a stone of remembering. It depends on who holds it." Lada looked at her glowing palm. She felt a pulse, a heartbeat that was not her own. It was the heartbeat of Radmila, of Mila, of all the women who had loved and lost. "I will break it," she said. "I will break it into dust, and I will scatter the dust across the sea. No one will ever be cursed by it again." Chapter 18. The Second Fragment. The Memory of a Monk. The second fragment lay in a cave beneath the ruins of the monastery where Roman had once lived. Lada descended into the darkness with a torch, Anna close behind, and Marmalade walking ahead with the confidence of a creature who had been in many caves and had never been impressed by any of them. The cave was filled with bones. Not human bones, beast bones. Deer, bear, wolf, all arranged in a spiral pattern. At the center of the spiral, a single stone glowed with a sickly green light. Lada stepped into the spiral. Instantly, the cave vanished, and she was inside the memory of Roman. It was the day he had forged the curse. He stood in his cell, holding his iron cross, whispering words that would trap the rusálka's Lata in eternal loneliness. A young novice stood behind him, shaking. "Brother Roman, this is a sin. You cannot damn a soul." Roman turned. His face was haggard, his eyes wild. "She damned me first. She loved me, and she drowned me. She left me to rot in the shallows. I am doing God's work. I am punishing the wicked." "She was a rusálka. She was born to drown men. She could not help what she was. But you are a man. You can choose mercy." Roman laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "Mercy. Mercy is for the weak. I will be strong. I will be iron. I will make sure that no woman, no creature, ever breaks a man's heart again without paying the price." He slammed the cross onto the stone, and the curse was born. But in that moment, a single tear fell from Roman's eye. It was not a tear of rage. It was a tear of regret. He knew what he was doing was wrong. He knew he was destroying himself, but he could not stop. That tear hardened into the second fragment. Lada pulled her hand away, choking on the emotions. She had felt Roman's self-loathing, his desperate need to be right, his fear that if he forgave Zlata, he would have to forgive himself. And that was the one thing he could not do. "Got it," she said, her voice hoarse. "One more memory of pain." "Two more," Marmalade corrected. "You have the mother's memory and the monk's memory. You still need the memory of the daughter, Mila, and the memory of the god, Perun. And then, the fifth fragment, the one that was never meant to be found. The fifth? Lada asked. What's the fifth? Marmalade's tail flicked nervously. The memory of the first stone, the one Radmila placed on Buyan. That fragment was not scattered, it was hidden. Hidden in the one place that no one would ever think to look. Where? Anna asked. In the heart of the cat. In my heart. I was the guardian of the original stone's memory. That's why Perun cursed me to be a cat, so I would carry the memory of the stone forever. The fifth fragment is me. You have to take it from me. Lada stared at the cat. You mean I have to break my heart, the cat said, with a calm that was worse than terror. Literally, you have to cut me open and take the stone from my chest. I will die, but I have lived 1,000 years. I am ready. Anna grabbed the cat. No, there has to be another way. You're my friend. You're my family. Family sacrifices, Marmalade said. That's what family does. We give ourselves for those we love. I loved you, Anna. I loved Lada before she was born, and I will love you both after I am gone. Take the knife, take my heart, and finish what you started. Lada looked at the bone knife in her belt. Her hand trembled. Do it, Marmalade said. And Lada, when you hold my heart in your hand, remember that I was once a princess. I was once a woman, and I chose to become a cat because I believed that love would find a way. It did. It found you. Lada raised the knife. Tears blurred her vision. Forgive me, she whispered. And she cut. Chapter 19. The Heart of the Cat. Lada's knife descended. The blade, honed on ancient bone, sliced through fur and flesh with a sound like tearing silk. Marmalade did not scream. She sang. A single, clear note, high as a bell, that rang through the cave and echoed off the walls of bones. Blood splattered, but it was not red. It was gold, thick and luminous, and it pooled around the cat's body like molten sunlight. Lada's hand plunged into the wound, her fingers closing around something hard and cold. A stone, perfectly round, warm as a living heart. She pulled it out. Marmalade collapsed, her eyes fluttering closed. But she was not dead. Her body began to shrink, to curl in on itself, and when Lada looked again, the cat was gone. In her place lay a tiny kitten, white as snow, with eyes that had not yet opened, mewling softly in the golden blood. Marmalade? Anna whispered, scooping up the kitten. Marmalade, can you hear me? The kitten mewed. It was a normal kitten mew. No words, no sarcasm, just hunger and warmth and the blind trust of new life. She's reborn, a voice said, not from the kitten, but from the stone in Lada's hand. She gave up her 1,000 years of memory. She gave up her voice. She gave up her curse. She is now what she always was at the beginning. Innocent. Take care of her, Anna. She loved you more than any mortal has ever loved a guardian. Lada stared at the stone. It was translucent, shot through with veins of gold, and it pulsed with the rhythm of a sleeping heart. "The third fragment," she said. "The memory of the first stone. It's warm. It feels like gratitude." "That's because it is," the stone's voice said. "I am the memory of the original stone, the one Radmilla placed on Buyan. I was never meant to be a curse. I was meant to be a prayer that the world would never forget its own sorrow. Because sorrow, if remembered, becomes wisdom. Sorrow, if forgotten, becomes poison." Anna looked at the kitten in her arms. The kitten nuzzled into her neck, purring with a sound that was entirely mundane and entirely precious. "We'll take you home," Anna whispered. "We'll feed you milk and give you a warm bed. And when you're ready, if you ever want to remember, we'll be here to tell you the stories." Lada tucked the golden stone into her pouch next to the gray fragment of Radmilla's grief and the green fragment of Roman's regret. 3 stones, 2 to go. "The memory of Mila," Lada said, "and the memory of Perun. Where do we find them?" The stone in her pouch pulsed once. "The memory of Mila lies where she drowned, the lake bed of Ilmen, at the spot where the water is deepest and the reeds grow in a circle. The memory of Perun lies in the hammer, the one that grew into an oak. But the oak has withered. You must find the root. The root holds his final tears." Lada looked at her mother. "We need to go back to the lake, back to the beginning." Anna nodded, the kitten cradled against her chest. "We always end where we started. That's the shape of a circle. That's the shape of a curse. And a blessing." They climbed out of the cave, the bones rattling behind them as if bidding them farewell. Chapter 20. The Drowned Girl's Farewell. The lake was calm. Ilmen lay flat as a sheet of gray silk, reflecting a sky that had forgotten how to be blue. Lada waded into the water, the shells and stones in her pouch, the bone knife at her belt. Anna watched from the shore, the kitten in her arms, her heart a clenched fist. "I have to do this alone," Lada said. "The memory chose me. It won't speak to you." Anna nodded. She wanted to argue, but she had learned in her long years that arguments were just prayers dressed in armor. She let her daughter go. Lada swam to the center of the lake where the reeds grew in a perfect circle, the mark of an ancient ritual. She dove. The water was cold, colder than it had any right to be, and she descended into the darkness. At the bottom, she saw her. Mila, not a ghost, a memory. The girl lay on the silt, her white shift billowing like a jellyfish, her hair tangled with weed. Her eyes were closed, but her lips moved, forming words that had no sound. Lada reached out and touched Mila's forehead. The memory swallowed her. She was Mila. She was standing on the shore of the lake 1,000 years ago, watching the Sevalad's boat disappear into the mist. She had cursed him, not with words, but with her silence. She had never told him she loved him. She had never said goodbye. And now he was gone, rowing toward a war that would kill him, and she would never hear his laugh again. I love you, she whispered to the empty lake. I love you, and I never said it. I was afraid that if I said it, he would stay. Afraid that if he stayed, he would die in my arms instead of in battle. Afraid of my own love, because love was the only thing that could truly kill me. A tear rolled down her cheek. It fell into the lake, and the lake remembered it. That tear hardened into a fragment, blue as a summer sky, warm as a confession. Lada surfaced, gasping. In her palm lay the fourth fragment, the memory of a love that was never spoken. She swam back to shore, her limbs shaking. Anna wrapped her in a towel. Lada, you're crying. I felt her, Lada said. I felt her love. It wasn't sorrow, it was longing. She wanted to say the words. She wanted to tell him, but she couldn't. And that's the worst curse of all, not being able to speak the truth when it matters. The kitten, Marmalade's new body, mewed and licked Lada's wet cheek. It was a tiny comfort, but it was enough. One more, Lada said. The memory of Perun. Where is the root? Anna pointed to the distant shore where the skeleton of the ancient oak stood. There, the root is buried deep. We'll need to dig, and we'll need to convince him to let go. Chapter 21. The God's Last Tear. The oak was dead. Its branches were bare, its bark cracked, its roots exposed by centuries of erosion. Lada knelt beside the largest root, the one that curled like a serpent into the earth, and she pressed her palm against it. The ground trembled. Thunder rolled across a clear sky. "Leave me," a voice boomed, Perun's voice, but softer, older, weary. "I have given enough. I have wept enough. I will not let you take my memory." Lada looked up. Perun stood before her, no longer a young god, but an old man with a beard of lightning and eyes that held the weight of 1,000 storms. "You loved Radmilla," Lada said. "You loved her, and she took your hammer. She took your power. She made you weak." "Yes," Perun growled, "and I have never forgiven her. Not truly. I pretended to forgive her when your mother came to Buyan, but the stone of forgetting whispered to me, and I began to forget her face, her voice, the way she laughed. And I was glad. I wanted to forget, because remembering hurts." Lada stood up. She met his gaze. "I know. I felt her memory. I felt her grief. She loved you so much that she stole your power to save you from yourself. She didn't betray you. She sacrificed herself. She became the villain of the story so you could be the hero. And you never thanked her. You never even said goodbye." Perun's eyes flickered. The thunder around him softened. I tried. I came to her grave. I left a flower. But she was already gone, turned to stone by her own tears. "Then give me your memory," Lada said. "Give me the last fragment. Let me take your grief and turn it into something else. Something that doesn't destroy. Something that heals." Perun looked at her. This girl with her mother's eyes and her grandmother's stubborn chin. She was so small, so fragile, so utterly, terrifyingly human. "You will take my memory," he said, "and you will use it with the others. You will reform the stone. And then what? Will you break it? Will you scatter it again?" "I don't know," Lada admitted. "But I know that remembering is better than forgetting, even if it hurts, even if it breaks me. I will carry the weight because someone has to." Perun reached into his chest. His hand emerged holding a tear, black as obsidian, crackling with static electricity. "Take it," he said. "Take my grief. Take my rage. Take the part of me that could never forgive. And use it wisely, child, because I am giving you a god's pain. It will burn." Lada took the black tear. It seared her palm, but she did not let go. She held it tight, and she felt his rage, his endless, sleepless fury at the woman who had broken his heart. She felt his loneliness. She felt his shame. And she forgave him, not with words, with the warmth of her hand. "I will remember you," she said, "not as the angry god, as the one who loved enough to let go." Perun wept. His tears turned to rain, soft and warm, washing over the dead oak. And the oak began to sprout new leaves, green, tender, alive. Lada placed the black tear in her pouch. 5 fragments, 5 memories, 5 wounds. She turned to her mother. "It's time. We have to reform the stone." Anna nodded. She held the kitten close. "Where do we do it?" Lada looked at the lake, at Ilmen, the place where it all began. "We do it where Mila drowned," she said. "We do it in the water. We dive down to the circle of reeds, and we fit the fragments together. And then—" "And then?" Anna asked. Lada smiled. It was a tired smile, a knowing smile, the smile of a girl who had grown up in a single week. "And then we decide what kind of world we want to live in." Chapter 22. The Joining of the Wounds. Lada dove into the lake for the last time. The water embraced her like an old friend, cold, patient, full of secrets. She descended through the layers, the green of weed, the gray of silt, the black of the abyss, where the reeds grew in their eternal circle. At the center of that circle, she placed the fragments. First, the gray stone of Radmilla's grief. It sank into the mud, and the mud began to glow. Second, the green stone of Roman's regret. It settled beside the gray, and the glow turned amber. Third, the gold stone of Marmalade's heart. It floated for a moment, then descended, and the amber turned to fire. Fourth, the blue stone of Mila's unspoken love. It touched the others, and the fire became a star. Fifth, the black stone of Perun's rage. It dropped last, and the star exploded into light. Not a blinding light, but a revelation. The fragments fused, the stone reformed, whole and terrible, and it rose from the mud to float before Lada's face. It was no longer a stone of forgetting. It was a stone of remembering every wound ever inflicted by love. And it spoke, not in words, in voices, thousands of voices, each one a soul that had loved and lost, cursed and blessed, drowned and risen. "You have gathered us," the stone sang. "You have held our grief, our rage, our longing. Now you must decide. Will you break us and erase all memory of pain from the world? Or will you keep us and carry the weight of every broken heart for eternity?" Lada's lungs burned. She needed air. But she could not surface, not yet. She reached out and touched the stone. "Show me," she thought. "Show me what happens if I break it." The stone showed her a world without pain, no grief, no loss, no heartbreak, but also no growth, no art, no poetry, no love that deepened because it had been tested. The world would be a flat, golden field of eternal blandness, where nothing ever hurt and nothing ever truly mattered. "Show me what happens if I keep it." The stone showed her a world where every wound remained, where every curse echoed, where every broken heart bled forever. But also a world where healing was possible, where forgiveness was a choice, where love could be reforged from the ashes of its own destruction. Lada surfaced, gasping. She clutched the stone to her chest. "Lada!" Anna called from the shore. "What happened? What did you see?" Lada waded back to land. She was shaking, but her eyes were clear. She looked at the stone, now whole, pulsing with the light of 1,000 memories. "I saw everything," she said. "I saw every person who ever loved too much and lost. I saw every mother who cursed, every monk who raged, every god who wept. And I saw that breaking the stone would destroy not just the pain, but the meaning of the pain. Without the pain, the love was meaningless. Without the grief, the joy was hollow." Anna stepped forward, the kitten mewing in her arms. "So what do we do? We can't carry that stone forever. It will destroy you." Lada looked at the stone. It was warm in her hands like a living heart. "I will not carry it," Lada said. "I will share it. I will break it, but not into fragments of forgetting. I will break it into fragments of teaching. Each fragment will become a story, a song, a poem, a prayer. The pain will not be erased. It will be transformed. It will become the ink of every book, the note of every melody, the tear of every lover who dares to hope again." The stone pulsed once, a heartbeat of agreement. "You are wise beyond your years," it whispered. "You are the first mortal who has ever chosen to teach the pain rather than destroy it. Very well. Break me, but break me with intention. Break me with love." Lada raised the stone above her head. The kitten, Marmalade's new body, suddenly opened its eyes. They were amber, just like before, and they held a flicker of ancient knowledge. "Do it," the kitten mewed. her first human word. "Break it. I'll catch the pieces. I've always been good at catching falling things." Lada threw the stone to the ground. It shattered, not with a crash, but with a chime, like 1,000 bells ringing at once. The fragments scattered, but they did not sink into the earth. They rose into the air, each one glowing with a different color, and they flew across the sky like a flock of luminous birds. Some settled in the soil, where they would grow into flowers that bloomed only at night. Some fell into the river, where they would become stones that sang to the fishermen. Some embedded themselves in the walls of churches, where they would whisper forgotten prayers to the faithful. And one, the smallest, the brightest, landed on the kitten's forehead, where it became a permanent star. Lada collapsed. Anna caught her. "I did it," Lada whispered. "I broke the stone, and I didn't destroy the pain. I made it into something beautiful." Anna held her daughter, the kitten purring between them. "You did more than that," Anna said. "You rewrote the rules. You taught the world that pain is not an enemy, it's a teacher. And the only way to stop a curse is to learn from it." Chapter 23. The Return of the Voices. The lake stilled, the mist cleared, the sun rose over Ilmen, not a pale autumn sun, but a golden, full-throated sun that sang as it climbed. From the water, 3 figures emerged: Mila, Vsevolod, Roman. They walked on the surface of the lake as if on solid ground, their forms translucent but whole. They were not ghosts, they were reconciliations. Mila smiled at Lada. "You spoke my love aloud. You gave voice to the words I could never say. Thank you. Now I can rest." Vsevolod took her hand. "And I can finally hear them. I waited 1,000 years to hear, 'I love you.' And you, Lada, you said them for her. You are the bridge we never had." Roman stepped forward. His face was peaceful. "I spent a millennium trapped in my own hatred. But you, child, you broke my curse not by fighting it, but by understanding it. You saw that my rage was just fear in a mask. I will teach others what you taught me, that forgiveness is not surrender, it is victory." They knelt before Lada, 3 souls, finally free. "We will guard the fragments," Mila said. "We will be the keepers of the stories. Whenever a heart breaks in the world, we will be there to whisper, 'It will become a song. It will become a flower. It will become a child.'" And then they vanished, dissolved into mist, into memory, into the wind that carried their names across the lake. Anna wept. Lada wept. The kitten, Marmalade, reborn, licked their tears and purred. "Well," the kitten said, her voice young but infinitely wise, "that was the most dramatic thing I have ever witnessed. And I witnessed the creation of the world. Twice." Lada laughed through her tears. "You're back. You're really back." "I never left," Marmalade said. "I was just waiting. Waiting for a soul brave enough to teach a stone how to sing. You did that, Lada. You taught a stone to sing, and now every broken heart will have a melody. Every tear will have a color. Every curse will have a door. Anna picked up the kitten and held her close. What do we do now? How do we live with all this? This knowledge, this power? Marmalade nuzzled into Anna's neck. You live. You eat bread. You drink tea. You fall in love and make mistakes and cry at sad movies. You do what humans do best. You continue. Because that's the blessing of the curse. It reminds you that you are alive. And being alive is the only adventure that matters. Chapter 24. The Dawn That Was Promised. 1 year later, Anna sat on her balcony, watching the sunset over Novgorod. The kitten, now a sleek, golden-eyed cat, curled on her lap. Lada was at university, studying folklore, determined to become the world's greatest collector of tales. They had rebuilt the glass case, but now, instead of shells, it held objects: a broken monk's cross, a tarnished princess's crown, a fragment of Perun's hammer, and a single, perfect spiral shell that had been found in the lake the day after the stone shattered. That shell never spoke, but when you held it to your ear, you heard a faint, distant humming, like the world singing a lullaby to itself. Anna picked up her pen. She was writing the final chapter of her book, not a story of curses, but a story of returning. Returning to oneself, returning to the people one loved, returning to the ordinary, because the ordinary was the only thing that could hold the extraordinary. She wrote, "We are all shells, each of us holding the echo of someone we loved and lost. We are all fragments, each of us carrying a piece of a stone that was never meant to be broken. But we are also menders. We are singers. We are the ones who take the shards and weave them into something new. That is the true magic, not the power to break curses, but the power to turn them into gifts." The cat stretched, yawned, and said, "That's pretty good, but you forgot the part about the fish." Anna laughed. "I'll add it in the second edition." The sun dipped below the horizon. The stars emerged, one by one, each one a fragment of the stone, each one a memory of a love that had not failed, but had been transformed. And in the distance, over the lake, a figure appeared on the water, a girl in white, with flowing hair and a smile that held 1,000 years of sorrow and joy. She raised her hand in a wave, and then she dissolved into the reflection of the moon. Anna waved back. "Goodbye, Mila. Sleep well." The cat flicked her tail. "She's not sleeping. She's teaching. She's teaching the stars how to sing, and they are learning." Anna closed her book. She looked at the cat. "Marmalade, was it worth it? All those centuries, all that waiting?" The cat looked at Anna with eyes that held the entire history of the world. "Every second," she said, "every single second. Because I got to watch you learn to love. I got to watch Lada grow. I got to watch the stone shatter into beauty. That's not worth. That's everything. That's the reason the sun rises. That's the reason the rain falls. That's the reason we keep going, even when it hurts. Because the hurting is just the beginning of the song. And the song, The song is eternal. Anna leaned her head back, closed her eyes, and listened to the faint humming that came from the spiral shell. It was not a sad sound. It was a sound of promise, a promise that the world was not broken, but becoming. And as she drifted into sleep, she whispered the words that had become her prayer. Remember, forgive, release, love, live. The cat purred, the stars sang, and the lake, ancient and patient, held its silence like a sacred trust. Author's Note: Anna Gogoleva. Dear reader, if you have journeyed this far, through the cold waters of Lake Ilmen, across the mythical shores of Buyan, into the tangled roots of Perun's oak, and down into the silent depths where shells hold the whispers of the drowned, then you already know what took me a lifetime to learn. Stories are not escapes. They are returns. On the origins of this book. I was born in a village that no longer appears on modern maps. It was a place where the forest still remembered the old gods, where grandmothers could cure a fever with a handful of herbs and a whispered prayer, and where the lake, always the lake, held secrets that no archaeologist's trowel could ever uncover. My grandmother, Avdotia, was the last of the village Snakharki. She could read the weather in the flight of crows, speak to the spirits of the drowned, and, most importantly, she could tell a story that would make you forget your own name. I spent my childhood at her feet, listening to tales of rusálki, who were not monsters but grieving daughters, of monks who cursed the world because they could not forgive themselves, of gods who loved too fiercely and lost everything because of it. She never called them fairy tales, she called them memories. And one night, when I was 13, she pressed a small spiral shell into my palm, the same shell that appears in these pages, though you will not find it in any museum. This is the shell of the first whisper, she said. It contains the voice of a girl who drowned 1,000 years ago. Not because she was cursed, because she was loved. And love, when it is not spoken, becomes water. And water, when it is not released, becomes a flood. I held the shell to my ear. I heard nothing, but I felt something, a pulse, slow and patient, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. When you are ready, my grandmother said, you will write her story. You will write it not as a warning, but as a bridge. Because the dead do not need our fear, they need our remembrance. And remembrance, if it is honest, is the only magic that can heal the world. She died 3 days later. I kept the shell. On the writing of this story, 20 years passed before I dared to write a single word. I became a historian, an archaeologist, a scholar of the very myths I had once believed with my whole heart. I told myself that I was seeking the truth. In reality, I was hiding from it. Because the truth, the terrible, beautiful truth, is that the old stories are not metaphors, they are memories. The rusálki were real, the curses were real, and the love that broke them was real too. I found the stones. I walked the Zalniks. I dove into the icy waters of Ilmen and came up gasping with fragments of shell in my pockets. I spoke to the ghosts of Novgorod, not with a Ouija board, but with the careful language of history and poetry and the quiet, stubborn belief that the dead are not silent, They are merely waiting. And then, one autumn night, I sat down at my grandmother's old desk, placed the shell beside my typewriter, and began to write. I did not plan the story. I received it. It came to me in fragments, a voice here, a vision there, and I simply transcribed what the shell whispered. That is how Anna, Lada, Marmalade, Mila, Vsevolod, Roman, and Perun were born. They were not my creations. They were my conduits. They were the ones who had been waiting for a voice, and I was the one who finally learned to listen. On the characters. You may wonder why I chose to write a cat, Marmalade, as a 1,000-year-old guardian who was once a princess. The answer is simple. Because I have always believed that animals carry the souls of those who have loved us. My grandmother had a black cat, a creature of immense dignity and even greater disdain, who would appear at the window whenever a storm was coming. She called her Vidana, which in Old Slavonic means the knowing one. I never knew if Vidana was truly magical, but I knew that she saw things we could not see, and that her purr could soothe the deepest grief. When she died, I buried her in the garden, and the next spring a birch tree grew from her grave. That birch is still there, whispering in the wind. And so Marmalade is my tribute to Vidana, to my grandmother, and to every creature who has ever carried the weight of our secrets without complaint. On the meaning of the curse. This book is often called a horror story. I prefer to think of it as a wake-up call, because the real horror is not the rusálka in the lake or the vengeful ghost in the monastery. The real horror is the curse we carry inside us. The curse of silence, of unforgiveness, of refusing to speak the truth when it matters most. Mila's curse was not that she became a rusálka. It was that she never said, "I love you," to Vsevolod before he died. Roman's curse was not that he forged an iron cross of hatred. It was that he never forgave himself for loving Zlata. Perun's curse was not that he lost his hammer. It was that he could not forgive Radmila for trying to save him. And the stone of forgetting, that great and terrible stone, was not a weapon of the gods. It was a weapon of denial. It was the lie we tell ourselves when we say, "If I forget the pain, it will no longer hurt me." But the pain does not vanish. It merely hides. And when it hides, it festers. And when it festers, it becomes a curse. A curse that passes from mother to daughter, from generation to generation, until someone has the courage to say, "I remember, I forgive, and I will not let the forgetting win." That is the heart of this story. Not the magic, not the gods, not the shells or the stones. The courage to remember. On writing for children and adults. I have been told that my books are too dark for children and too whimsical for adults. I reject both labels. A true story has no age. It speaks to the child who still believes in magic and the adult who has learned to doubt. And it reminds them both that doubt is not the opposite of belief. It is the beginning of a deeper belief. I write for the child who is afraid of the dark. I write for the adult who has forgotten how to dream. I write for the grandmother who still whispers prayers to the lake. and I write for the granddaughter who will one day hold a shell to her ear and hear the voice of the drowned girl waiting to be remembered. That is my purpose. That is my prayer. That is my gift and my burden. On the future. The story of Anna, Lotta, and Marmalade is complete. The stone is shattered. The fragments are scattered. The songs are sung. But the world is not complete. The world is still full of curses, of silence, of rage, of forgetting. And the world is still full of those who have the courage to break them. If you are reading this, I ask you one question. What curse are you carrying? What silence have you been holding? What love have you failed to speak? And I ask you one more. What will you do today to break it? Because you do not need a shell. You do not need a stone. You do not need a god or a ghost or a cat with amber eyes. You need only the courage to remember and to speak. The rest is just a story. But stories, as I have learned, are the most powerful magic of all. Acknowledgements. This book would not exist without the quiet patience of my grandmother, Avdotia, whose voice I still hear in the rustle of the birch leaves. It would not exist without the waters of Lake Ilmen, which taught me that the dead are not enemies. They are teachers. It would not exist without the scholars who preserved the fragments of Old Slavonic, and the poets who translated them into the language of the heart. And it would not exist without you, dear reader, who have chosen to hold this story in your hands and carry it with you into the world. May you always remember that the deepest magic is not in the shells, the stones, or the gods. The deepest magic is in the love that dares to speak, even when silence is easier. Slava Bogam, Slava Predkam, Slava Zhizny. Glory to the gods, glory to the ancestors, glory to life. Anna Gogoleva. Spring, 2026. P.S. The shell is still in my drawer. It still whispers, and I am still listening. P.S. If you ever visit Lake Ilmen, stop by the Zhalnik. Leave a stone. Say a name. The dead are not angry. They are just waiting for someone to remember them. P.S. Marmalade is a real cat. She lives in my garden. She still has amber eyes. She still judges me. And I am still grateful. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical, photocopying, recording, or otherwise, without the prior permission of the author. Copyright 2026, Anna Gogoleva.